don't think we should talk about this.
Come on, why not?
People might misunderstand what we're trying to say, you know?
No, but that's a part of life.
Hi, and welcome to the Lit Within podcast. In this edition, we're going to talk about perfect parenting to bring about the optimum performance of your child. It's going to contain all the information you need to ensure the successful development of your child now and in the future. In the studio, I'm joined by Lewis Buxton.
Hi, Michael.
Hi there, Lewis. What do you think is the key ingredient, Lewis, that we need to understand as parents?
It's about starting with yourself, getting an understanding of HX for yourself and embodying that. And that will show up and act as a guiding light for your kids.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't teach them what you don't know, do you? So it's all very well hoping with math, geography, whatever the subject matter is. Clearly, if you don't know about it, you're not going to be able to be of much use to them. So it's really getting this as a subject matter, much more in parents' field of vision, if you like, that they really need to bear down on this as the ultimate leverage point for successful development of their child. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And it's definitely a shift away from looking at behavior, looking to how we work as human beings, isn't it? That's the impact. That's what you need. You need to know what you're working with. You need to know what you're dealing with.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another thing that, as you quite rightly point out, everyone is focusing on. They want behavior change, and yet they're not looking at what are the drivers of behavior. It's very, very difficult to, in fact, just change behavior.
Yeah, and I think if you distill it down, people basically want engaged conversations with their kids where they're not lost thinking about the day of work. You know, they're not tied to all of that psychological information they've got running about work, and they're able to just enjoy their kids, be engaged in what they're doing, and just have a fantastic day. Like we've spoke previously about clients that have had a particular day where they're like, wow, yeah, we were just completely in the day together. It was just like we weren't stuck looking at our phones and they're on their iPad nonstop. Not that is a problem from time to time, but we were just completely enjoying it. It was like when you see, the way I like to describe it is when I see my kids completely engaged with each other, just playing and just having a great time. It's loose, it's fun. That's what I love to see from parents as well, you know. And I think the problem we've got is that we're innocently introducing insecurities into our children in the education system at the moment. For me, that's a wrong step, and I know that you've got something to bring up on that particular thing at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is a really interesting thing as people without an understanding of HX, for example, there's a way that it would seem optimal to educate your child, and then understanding it slightly different. So what I'm suggesting, I think in what I've seen, is that there's an innocent, and I want to underscore that, a kind of innocent introduction to children, that they are lacking somehow, or that they're kind of not good enough or not producing good enough work, by a sort of a methodology which says or introduces, how can it be better? How could I make this better? How can I improve upon it? I.e., it's not complete, it's not finished, it's not your best work. And having these thoughts then that play out when you're an adult has huge impact in your life. So the alternative I'm suggesting, what should we do instead, is to encourage them to realise that if they're doing work that's half finished, even in their own mind, they can just put that to one side. And carry on with something new if they're no longer inspired to do that. It's a bit like my own daughter's really keen on art, so looking at artists of the past, oftentimes they would sketch out a number of things just to evolve what it is they want to draw, what they'd like to create, from what perspective they like to draw or paint from. That wouldn't be a work in and of itself. And I think what kind of happens classically with artists, those that are really in touch with this, they'll start a particular painting in one scene, or if we talk about landscapes, and it could transform to be a completely different painting at the end of the day, where it's morphed into something else that they've followed. So we know this because we've x-rayed or revealed the different layers behind ancient paintings, for example, masterpieces. They've been quite different underneath. Even whole figures have been removed that were once there, all sorts of things. So I think it's really introducing them to just going, as you said earlier, Lewis, touching on that, getting into their own flow, and it's fine to put it down or not really consider it anymore, of kind of making it better. That whatever work they've done to that point, it's good enough.
Exactly. Yeah, that creativity is where it's at. Just bringing that out of children, I think that's the most important thing for me, that they understand on the deepest level that they are good enough as children. And this is just change we're talking about here. We're talking about changing a painting time and time again. So if the children are encouraged with a mantra, how can I make this better? It comes with an undertone, an undercurrent of saying what I've got right now is not good enough. And to me, you wouldn't use that mantra in a way of trying to improve a child's work, or to be more accurate, to change it to how you'd like to see it. You wouldn't use that mantra if you knew that the key to their progression is within them, with their own creativity, their own innovation, to bring that out, for them to express who they are and what they're interested in. And I think that's one of the key outcomes and key benefits of HX. Understanding the principles behind HX is that you're not going to force children down an avenue which you think is how they should turn out. Because I know as a former athlete, I can remember having a few thoughts about watching Serena Williams and Venus Williams. I thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool if the kids just turn out to be like little tennis players? Wouldn't that be cool? And then after a while, I just realised, who's that idea come from? Who's that serving? And I thought, you know what? That is not useful. That's just my idea, because I want to say to my mates or say to my mum, oh, look, yeah, she's a little tennis star. Yeah. And I want to be associated with that. And I thought that's not what they want. So I started, once that left, once I understood HX, that thought no longer carried weight. And I was just on to, well, what do they want to do? And I started to see what they're interested in, what they love to do. And I see with like my youngest, she loves to dance, she loves to sing, she loves to express herself. And then my older daughter, she loves to do drawing, and she loves to read books. So it's just bringing out what's within them, what they're interested in. And I think if you look at the education system, I think that it's a one size fits all at the moment. And I think in time that will develop, and I see that, learning maths, science, geography, all these things has its benefits, but it's not perfect for everyone. Some kids have got other more targeted, specific interests that you need to develop, So I think that's the way education is going to go in the future. And I think this wave of HX is going to be important in determining that. So one thing I wanted to bring up as well, Michael, was I know in certain schools across the country, there's a couple of things they're looking at to kind of improve the well-being, if you like, as a basis to drive performance within schools. So this could be in private schools or public schools, and it's things like bringing a dog in. They say that's going to increase their well-being. Or it could be, let's get the feeling wall up and let's talk about your feelings and stroke the wall and tell me how you're feeling. And let's create a school mantra. So, every school, days gone by, always has like a little short mantra, might have it on their school uniform even, in Latin or something, seize the day or whatever. So what's the benefit of HX in comparison to those things? So is that where we're saying that there's an insecurity being driven in?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we're saying fundamentally is less is more. That they're born enough. They have all the capacities already residing within them to fulfill whatever potential it is that we perceive it's going to be. So it's more like recognizing the kind of, to use a kind of horticultural term, the kind of plant you've got, the kind of flower you've got, as opposed to trying to shape it into what it is you think that you want to do. And then all that a flower needs to thrive really is just love, attention, respect for kind of how it's going to do well. So if you've got a surprise bulb growing up, you're going to have to respond and notice to what it's responding to and what it's enjoying and liking, and make sure you provide more of that. It's really not more complicated than that. And when we do that, children can kind of realize or become all that they can be. And it's by our own judgments of saying that things are wrong, for example, if they're struggling, for example, in how they feel or in their own moods or whatever it is, in us trying to fix that, when as adults we can't fix our own moods as adults. And it's recognizing again that that's part of what it is to be human, and embracing that means it's much more likely to pass, to move on, and for your kind of interest to come back about whatever it is you want to create or learn in life. So we can be a lot more kind of reactive to seeing what their needs are and supporting that, instead of trying to be so proactive in what we're going to do, what we're going to fix in order to make everything okay.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's spot on. It is quite simple, you know, when you boil it down to that, in that we need to know our own role, and our role isn't to force our children into a particular path. It's just to support them in whatever they do.
Yeah, it's getting out of the way. It's kind of we're effectively blocking the light, to get back to that kind of analogy. We're the ones getting in the way of the sunlight reaching them, and we don't realize that, where all we need to do is step aside, get out of the way, because they're quite capable, through years of our own evolution. You know, life is flourishing through them, whether we do a great deal to it or not. You know, that's how it's going to play out.
So I guess that draws it back in, you know, if you want your child to flourish, if you want them to achieve their potential, then it starts with you moving out of the way of forcing them down a particular avenue. And how you do that is get to know why, what is the cause of that, you know, what is getting in the way of you just being supportive.
Yeah.
You get to understand that through HX. And then the knock on from that is that you no longer stunt the growth or stunt the achievement of your own child.
Yeah, precisely. And that's what it's all about. It's just recognizing that, or making available this option for parents, those that are motivated to do the very best for their children, that want to ensure that they give them every opportunity and seize every opportunity for them to thrive. They're the ones that are going to pick up in this domain, and really accelerate that.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think there is such a massive weight, isn't there? I think if you look at the parents will move to a particular area just for that school, and they're like, shall we progress our career because we need to live in this particular area, and then we need the child to go to a particular school? Do we need to pay the extra tuition fees for a private school? You know, so I think part of this help as well is in the assessment, for parents to be able to assess with clarity the school that they're putting their child into. And I think that part of that is, if you're completely focused on results, you actually inhibit the potential of your child, because you're unable to see the value of bringing them into a supportive environment, a supportive school. And you can evaluate that yourself quite clearly, I think, when you get to understand the principles behind HX. That's something I've experienced. My kids have gone to primary school where I know my wife wanted us to look at other schools, but we looked at one school in particular, and I knew that was the right school. And it's turned out that school got one of the best results in the entire country for a primary school. But it wasn't just that swayed me. I understood that there was also a fantastic level of support and a community feel to that school as well, that brought about its own benefits, you know, in building them as children. So I think that's a big element, isn't it, for parents? They want to get their children into the right school, the right teachers, the right classmates. And from my point of view, I'd like to hear your point of view. There's great benefit in understanding HX in choosing a school that not only on a piece of paper gets results, but also brings out other elements of the child, which, you know, all add to them achieving their potential and enjoying their school life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's producing all round kind of happy, healthy, productive, and engaged children that are enjoying their life. Excuse me. So I think that, you know, from that basis, you said a grounding there in wellness, because kids in wellness don't bully other children. You know, it doesn't
Yeah.
make sense, because you're in your own happiness. You're not taking out your frustrations on others. So we can look at the problems with bullying, for example, and the problem is the bully. It's not the person who's being bullied. And more oftentimes, in my experience, my little knowledge of this, I haven't had a child go through this myself, but from what I can see, it looks as though, you know, there's far greater resources and attention placed upon the bully. Obviously, there's implications to that they're going to be getting some punishment or some sort of way of seeing the error of their ways. But fundamentally, a lot more goes into the victim, as it were, in order what can they do to stop that happening again. And then some parents, I'm sure, going down the route of self-defense classes, you know, hey, all this extra work. Not there's anything wrong with self-defense in and of itself. You know, they're all good things. But if you're doing it because you've got to toughen up or you want to get them to man up, all these kind of things get drilled into children at such a young age, when really the person, the victim, as it were, they're the last person that needs attention. It seems that as it plays out as adults that are grounded in their own wellness and peace and happiness, they don't cause problems in the world. And this brings us on really to the kind of detractors in the classroom, Lewis. I think that's similar in that vein as well, that the unhappy children or those that are not aligned with HX core values can start to disrupt a whole class and then end up taking 80% of the teacher's attention in order to keep them on board or manage their behaviour, which again is detrimental to the vast majority who are engaged and present and want to learn.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that comes back to the teachers, doesn't it? It's the teachers. When we don't live in a world where, at the moment, where nobody is bullying another person. We don't live in that world at the moment. So the world we live in at the moment, the teachers have to be able to adapt to that and make the right call, you know. So it's just about empowering the teachers as well, for them to understand HX, for them to understand how to handle these children, what's going on for them. And I agree that if a child's bullying, I think we've tried the punishment line and it hasn't worked too often. There's a reason why we stopped caning kids, you know, it's because it didn't work. So they require a different type of attention, in my opinion. They might not always be open to it. To me, if they're a young child, they are going to be open to it. And you never know what's going on for them personally. But your best opportunity is for a group of teachers who understand clearly HX and they understand how we experience life, what's going on for that child. So what we're talking about in terms of parenting is how to be kind of like a super parent, you know, how to be the best parent you can be, because that's what's going to bring the best out of your child as well when they see the best of you. What impact do you see has happened for you as a parent? I know you got into coaching and consulting, understanding HX more deeply for yourself. Obviously, we can only speculate on how things would have panned out for you without HX. But what's the extra 10, 20% that you feel that you've got with you and your daughter?
Well, I would say that, you know, that it's a big question, but to summarise it as briefly as I can, you know, I've come from a position of not really being interested in children, of having much time for children, to being completely whatever the opposite of that is, through my own daughter and through experiencing that myself. And how that plays out for her is that I notice that the more love, attention, present, aliveness, enthusiasm that I display, that's what shows up in her. You know, it's infectious. the cool thing is when we talk about behaviours, because behaviour is a learned thing, you can learn good behaviours. You can learn things that are much more useful to you in your life. So if you could learn happiness, enjoyment, fun, enthusiasm, engagement, then why wouldn't you? And that's what's played out for me for sure.
Yeah, I can only echo that for me myself. Obviously, as I remember, my sister had children obviously before I did, and I was very stiff, didn't know how to interact, and then eventually had my own kids, and as it's progressed, I've just effortlessly been able to get lost in engagement. And basically, I guess, obviously I'm not a kid, I'm an adult, but I felt like I've been on her level, both their levels, and just been able to really enjoy it. And I'm not pretending in that. I'm actually enjoying it. It's actually amazing to have that time when you go into kind of play on the scooter, play on the bike, mess about, dancing, watching Disney films and playing around and just being an idiot and letting go of everything that you've got on your mind, naturally. So for me, that interaction, that's priceless, that's golden. So yeah, why wouldn't you want that level of engagement, that quality of interaction? And you can't really put a value on that from my point of view. So that's what I've got out of it.
Yeah, I mean that quality time is what they really notice. They know when they've got your full attention, or whether you're someplace else. And I think this is huge. So for me, it's definitely been effortless. And I guess in a way, it kind of touching on perfection things and everything. I know that for myself, I wouldn't change a thing. With it how it is and what's gone on, it's been perfect to this point. So it's maintaining that really for me, and and not thinking, the shoulda, woulda, couldas, which I've had in other areas of my life and different things that I've seen, but fortunately not in this domain. So yeah, feeling quite blessed. So I think for people out there, if HX is new to you and you're starting to hear something what we're talking about, you're curious about it, welcome to the conversation, and we look forward to engaging with you further on it.
Yeah, definitely. And the final thing before I go, something just come to me actually before we wrap it up. With my daughter, one of my daughters, I think people are cynical when they listen to things like this. They're cynical because they've read so many parenting books, they've watched so many parenting videos, they've looked at behaviour non-stop, and they're still cynical. And I get that. I appreciate that. So I just want to share something quickly before we go. Michael came to my house maybe 6-7 months ago, was it? You remember when you came up?
No, it was a good while ago. Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah, quite some time ago. And my kids have never met Michael. Never met him at all. And we come into the kitchen, and Michael just had instant connection with the kids. So they were, at the time, one was 5 and one was 4. So he had instant connection. And the fallout from that is, even to this day, like yesterday, one of the kids mentioned, this is not the first time they mentioned it, they mentioned Michael. And they said, yeah, that reminds me of Michael, Daddy, because he said at night, although he's bald, his hair all grows out long. And they just remembered like a short little joke, but that stuck with her because of the impact, because of the interaction, the engagement. And they'll say things like that. Oh, is Michael coming up soon? Who've you just been speaking to, Dad? Yeah, Michael. Oh, is he coming up soon? And I can just tell the genuine way that they describe that moment, and that when they talk about you, that even in that short time, there was greater impact. So we're talking probably Michael stayed for maybe only one night, I think. Maybe it might have been, was it 1 or 2 nights?
Yeah, I think it's just a night, wasn't it? Yeah.
So you're probably talking, they were still going to school and what have you. You're probably talking about a pocket of 4 or 5 hours in a child's lifetime. But the positive impact, if you like, of that has stuck with them. Whereas I know people that are going to be in and out their life they're going to triple, quadruple, times 10, times 100 times served with them, but that impact is not going to be there. So I think anyone that's feeling slightly tentative or feeling, you know, is this for real? Is this the real deal? You know, I've read parenting books, I've had this information before. What's this going to tell me that I don't already know? Then that story alone is kind of the proof, you know? So I'm just serving that up as a bit of extra proof for people that need it. Is there anything else you want to touch on before that?
No, to be honest, there isn't. I'm a bit emotional, mate, hearing about that.
Yeah.
I noticed
Tear,
that at the
tear.
time, but I didn't know that there was still that impact going on. And it's lovely to hear that there's the lasting impact of this. I think that's what everyone craves, you know, is connection, is attention, is a genuine interest and curiosity and lightheartedness, you know. And it's well, as you demonstrated, it's memorable. And
well, you remember your best teacher as well, right? Everyone remembers a particular teacher because of that same scenario. The impact, not necessarily they were the best teacher, that impact was there, that connection was there. They felt like this person's just supporting me, they're not trying to force me down a particular avenue.
Yeah, exactly. Become interested in them and they'll become interested in you. It's kind of like that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, if you want to find out more, like we said, go to @LitWithin Instagram, watch the videos Lit Within in YouTube, get in touch with us. If you want to know more about parenting, we're producing parenting programs and many more opportunities to work with us. So take care. That's the end of the parenting podcast. We'll speak to you soon.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
I don't think we should talk about this.
Come on, why not?
People might misunderstand what we're trying to say, you know?
No, but that's a part of life.